Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board, please call roll.
Arencibia,
Present.
Paul,
Present.
Segura,
Here.
Solis,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Aguirre,
Here.
Adamos.
Here.
Thank you. We'll now hold a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Hand over your art. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues: public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, Government Code Section 54957. 2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. Paragraph 2, subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. 3, conference with labor negotiator. Government Code Section 54957.6. The board took the following action: moved by Hall, second by Solis, to approve the request for leave of absence for one certificated employee with a vote of Arencibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. The board on a vote of 5-0, Hall, Pike, Segura, Solis, Tarantino, on August 24th, 2020, authorized a settlement agreement concerning potential litigation in claim number 20824, which has now been approved by all parties. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the March 8th, 2021 regular board meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Move to second. Vote, please.
Adamos,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We will now provide an opportunity for SDCOE Representative Dr. Mark Scribana to make any comments.
No comments tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll now have an update from our interim superintendent, Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, President Segura. And first and foremost, good evening and welcome to our March 8th, 2021 board meeting. First off, wanted to honor and recognize the fact that today is International Women's Day, very important day, and want to make sure we recognize and celebrate all the women in our lives. Secondly, vaccinations. A brief update, they are now available to all district employees because all the quartiles have now been opened by the county for purposes of vaccinations. I want to acknowledge the work that occurred by many in our community to ensure that educators had that ability to receive these COVID-19 vaccinations because they will allow us to begin the process, the next phase of our process as it pertains to reopenings. Thirdly, want to make sure I mention that we welcome the ongoing collaboration with all of our employee associations. And we, ever since we went to the distance learning model or telework model, we have continued to resolve problems constructively. To that end, I'm pleased to announce that today we have reached a tentative agreement with SEA regarding SB 86. This is the schools reopening legislation, which is still to be ratified by members and by the Board of Trustees. But I think that reflects our ongoing constructive dialogue to ensure that we are working in a way that's safe and in a way that observes all the protocols for health and safety. We ensured we allowed sufficient time for vaccinations to be here. And again, we welcome the collaborative conversations and dialogue in order to allow us to move on to the next phases of reopening. Also wanted to, just as a point of information, I know there's been a lot of advocacy regarding the issue or the question of reopening of schools. It's important to note that just yesterday, the California Department of Public Health proceeded to not allow or permit 3 school districts within our county, those school districts being Poway, San Dieguito, and Carlsbad. As they were seeking to reopen, they were denied that ability by the California Department of Public Health. So again, there's a lot of advocacy, and we understand all perceptions, all perspectives with regards to advocacy with our district. The reality is that we do not necessarily control these decisions, as some of these are at a state level. I think that's an important clarification. And lastly, wanted to provide a brief reminder for all of us that this upcoming weekend is daylight savings. It's coming up, so we all get to spring forward, just as a friendly reminder. So with that, thank you, President Segura, members of the Board of Trustees, and members of our public. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. We'll now have an update from our student board representative, Ms. Desiree Ramos.
Good evening, board and SUHSD community. I apologize for not having my camera off, but I just do want to quickly say that I have no updates as of right now.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. You caught me off guard there. The board members have all received a copy of the DLAC report, and would like to welcome DLAC President Ms. Estrada, who has a summary of her report for the board.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, President Segura, board members, and Dr. Aguirre. I'm Guadalupe Estrada, and I'm the president of DLAC. And I would like to congratulate President Segura for continuing with us to support each of our students. And also, I would like to board member Dr. Adrian Arancibia. I would like to welcome you to our district and invite you to work together for each of our students. We want to share our thoughts with you, and we know in advance that you are working to give the necessary support to our students for their success. The parents are satisfied that we can communicate our thoughts, concerns, negative and positive comments, and others. We know that there is a lot of work behind our responses to our concerns, and we want to thank all the staff, and especially Dr. Ana Maria Alvarez, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, for all the support they gave to us. And also to Ms. Griselda Delgado, our Director of State and Federal Programs. And to Anna Simmons, our community-related facilitator for the state and federal programs. Also, I would like to thank the board to let us, the parents, participate in the local CABE conference last December 12th, and also to have the continued partnership with our UCSD extension, and we have also the Parent University Series this spring, with facilitated by Dr. Morgan. And thank you so much, because you always giving our support to parents going to workshops. And saying that, passing with another point, we like to give our recommendation using the workrooms, since parents feel that communication is more effective and with something closer to human contact. You have great parents with great enthusiasm to learn and support our students, but above all, with great patience and dedication, since with connectivity problems and others, even though the internet taken out of the meetings, They will return not only after one attempt, but several. Sometimes due to lack of an electronic device, they have to use their cell phone, making it difficult for them to observe the presentation. But even so, our wonderful parents continue with a great commitment to support all of our students. And I end by emphasizing that we continue to have the doors open to communication. That's all for my part. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any comments on her report or the report that she submitted? Mr. Tarantino.
Thank you, President Segura. I would just like to thank you, Ms. Estrada, for the very detailed reports that, under your leadership, the DLAC has been submitting to the board, especially the inclusion of the ELAC and DLAC notes from the various sites. I think that helps not only the board, but also the staff in terms of being aware of your concerns and also what's working and what's not working, so we can direct our attention to those. So I just want to say, job well done and keep up the good work. And thank you again for your diligence and your dedication to this endeavor. That's all I have, President Segura.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Trustee Hall.
Yes, thank you, President Segura. And Guadalupe, I just wanted to say thank you. Also, I echo all the remarks from Mr. Tarantino, because you have been a stellar president for the DPAC, DLAC. I just really appreciate everything you've done to bring us the full information and a very comprehensive report. I agree with you. Great leadership by Griselda Delgado, Ana Maria Alvarez, and their team. They've really supported you well, I believe, and provided some really great training to some parents who have dedicated themselves and volunteered to really spend a lot of time representing their schools and their students. So I really thank each and every one of them for that. And I was glad to see that Eva Romero from Mar Vista High is noted in your notes, and I'm glad that we have representation from that school, because every school needs to be part of that. So I'm looking forward to hearing from other schools as well from our west side, and especially from like Southwest, San Ysidro, Granger. I did see somebody from Granger in there, so I really appreciate all those people being there and really spreading the word and encouraging each other through this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Yes, Ms. Estrada, I really appreciate the information. And I echo what Trustee Hall and Trustee Tarantino have mentioned, and I like the bullet points that you include with the reports, and let us know what's not working and what's working. And like Trustee Hall and Tarantino said, that lets the staff and the district leadership know what to work on. So thank you for your leadership, and I think that's all we have for you. Thank you for this fine report.
You're welcome.
And with that, we'll move to D1, correct, Deanne? I'll read it out. Conduct a public hearing for the public to respond to the Sweetwater Union High School District initial proposals to the California School Employees CSEA Chapter 258, the exclusion of the representatives of the Operations, Support, and Services Bargaining Unit, Chapter 471, the exclusive representative of the Office Technical and Business Services Bargaining Unit, and Chapter 731, the exclusive representative of the Paraprofessional Bargaining Unit, and approve the initial proposal for the District 2 CSCA. I will now open the hearing. Is that all right, Deanne? Hearing's open. Are there any speakers?
There are no speakers, Mr. President.
If the public hearing is not closed, do I have a motion to approve the initial proposals from the District to CSEA?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved in second. Vote, please.
Adamos,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes,
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. This is the point on agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the superintendent's office for review and report. Speakers shall refrain from use of profanity and shall speak in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation.
The first speaker is Elizabeth McKay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Should I read my comment now or?
No, we're hearing comments from Elizabeth McKay. Go ahead.
Good evening. As the case rates continue to decline and teachers having the option to get vaccinations, I feel that we need to expedite our children returning to in-person learning. It's ridiculous that theme parks and stadiums will begin reopening on April 1st, yet our children will not be back to in-person learning. As has been stated countless times, online learning has had a very negative effect on the mental and physical well-being of students. As my child's advocate, I ask the board to give all families the option to return to in-person learning. For those not comfortable sending their children back, they can continue online learning. In addition to asking you to reconsider your reopening plan, I also ask you to reconsider your sporting event spectator guidelines. If we are currently allowed to sit outdoors, dine in restaurants, and soon attend stadium events, there's no reason we should not be able to sit outside, keep social distance, and watch our child's sporting event. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Jesse Hale.
Okay. Good evening. I'm aware that several board members, specifically board members Tarantino and Solis, have been complimenting themselves for bringing back teachers from the layoffs while ignoring the fact that they both initiated and voted for these layoffs at the beginning of the pandemic and 3 days before the state ban on layoffs during the pandemic started, while working to stifle public feedback before doing those votes. Many of those teachers who were victims of the Jenny Tarantino Solis layoffs were never given the opportunity to return. And many of the communities, both learning and professional, were altered forever. Many of the ones who have returned are on temporary contracts and are facing the sadness of once again losing their community and the stress of losing their livelihood and health insurance as we enter the recovery. It is not just a moral obligation to bring them back and react to right the wrong that still has not been righted. It is an academic one and also preparation for the next pandemic in our future. As we have opened for in-person learning at the end of the year, many schools in Finland stayed open for in-person learning all year and have less deaths for the entire pandemic than we had yesterday. How? They were prepared. They had classes half the size of the 40 plus in many of ours. That made adapting safety measures to even consider partially reopening close to impossible. There have been calls for resignations for both Solis and Tarantino for their past mistakes, calls that I fully supported when I was part of the layoff. Now I see both of you as my students. You are better than your worst moments. Now is the moment you set your legacy as putting students first. I ask not just Tarantino and Solis, but all board members to propose a resolution to offer all of our temporary teachers permanent contracts and move towards reopening all learning centers for our students. Give our new superintendent all the tools he needs to continue to guide us and our students to a better future. And I ask our entire community, Sweetwater community, to petition our state and local governments to pass legislation to limit class sizes to 25 students per class. Many states, including Florida, have moved in this direction. We can too. Nothing is possible until we make it possible. Instead of reacting by moving backwards, let's be the district that plans for the future by realizing dreams and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The next comments are from Evie Ramsier. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Evelyn Ramfire. The Mar Vista PTSA had their first campus cleanup on Saturday, March 6th. We cleaned up trash, weeds, dry leaves, and dug up small tree-sized pepper tree offshoots along the fence on IV Boulevard from the baseball field down to the parking lot. We had parents, community members, and students help us with the cleanup. It was a great turnout. It was a beautiful day, and we did it all in 2 hours. The community has spoken. From all the positive comments we received, the generous help that was given, and the all-around good vibes we felt, Imperial Beach residents want the crown jewel, our Mar Vista High School campus, to look like one. I asked that Mar Vista clean up the weeds inside the fence so the spectators have a clear view and don't have to look at weeds as they sit outside the school campus to watch their students play sports. We on PTSA are anxious to be able to help and get on campus and help with that effort. Hopefully, we won't have to pull weeds like we've done years prior, but we would like to paint and spruce up the place so the students have something to be proud of once they return to campus. I think the students' attitudes will be different once they return to school. It will matter what their campus looks like. They will take pride and have gratitude in the fact that they can attend school once again. Let's help them in that journey of appreciation by cleaning up the campus so they have something wonderful to come back to. While other schools have the luxury of being on campus part-time, Sweetwater is down in the dirt talking about weeds. Thank you.
Thank you. The next comments are from Joseph Amaro.
Good evening, Interim Superintendent Aguirre and distinguished board members. My name is Joe Amaro. Some of you know me and know that I have had the privilege of being a CT instructor in this district for 26 years. I've seen a lot of changes over that time. At the last board meeting, there was discussion and examples of excellence in leadership. One of those examples was the Otay Ranch Mustang VEX Robotics teams being awarded the 2021 VEX Robotics International Robotics Honor Society Service Award. Nationally, this is a prestigious award for Otay Ranch and our district. This was done under the excellent leadership of Chad Pearson, with some assistance from myself and Dr. Jesus Ioa, District STEM Coordinator. Another example of excellence in leadership is Mr. Jeff Cover, head of VAPA and CTE and College Career Readiness Departments. During the last 2 years, I have had the honor of sitting down with Mr. Cover over several meals. During this time, I have learned a little bit about him as a person and as a leader. Mr. Cover started out years ago as a band director. He later became an administrator, and for the last 8 years has overseen the excellent, award-winning VAPA programs in our district. His passion is VAPA and especially music. 2 years ago, the head of CTE and College Career Readiness, Mrs. Leano, retired. At that time, our district was experiencing a major budget deficit. I can understand why the district did not fill her position at that time. The district gave Mr. Cover, the head of VAPA, the added responsibility of CTE and CCR. I truly believe that Mr. Cover has done an amazing job of juggling two diverse and extensive departments. I've learned throughout my years that if you try to take on too many tasks at one time, something suffers. As the district coordinator for the VEX Robotics program over the last 4 years, I learned to say no. Due to the success of the robotics program over the last few years, which was accomplished by a team of individuals, I, as the coordinator, have been asked to head up or be involved in other new STEM programs. However, I knew if I did, I would spread myself too thin and robotics could suffer. The VAPA and CTE departments have suffered these last 2 years due to leadership being spread too thin, especially during this pandemic. As we come out of this pandemic and return to our classrooms, it is time that this district seriously look at filling the position that Mrs. Leano vacated and return Mr. Cover to only leading his passion in VAPA. I know that there are staff currently in our district that have a passion for CTE and CCR that could possibly fill the vacated position and allow Mr. Cover to concentrate solely on VAPA. Many people might not realize how many students are involved in VAPA and CTE. I was surprised. but according to my research, over 25,500 students are enrolled in VAPA and CTE courses in our district. Tonight, as a CTE instructor, I ask you to please provide all of the VAPA and CTE instructors with a leader that is not spread too thin, and more importantly, give our 25,000 plus students the excellence in leadership that they and our community deserve. Again, what I'm asking you, the board, and the administrators in our district is to fill a position that Ms. Leano vacated and allow Mr. Cover to concentrate all of his efforts on doing an excellent job of overseeing VAPA. Remember this number, 25,500 plus students are being affected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Kathleen Cheers.
Good evening. I would like to begin by recognizing Mr. John Chakowski's recent award. The community is fortunate to have such a knowledgeable veteran who consistently works to ensure the safety of students and employees. While he walks softly, the deep footprint he leaves is one based on expertise and continuing research. I contacted the County Board of Ed on March the 3rd regarding the letter distributed to district office employees and trustees on February 27th. The county's website specifically stated district office personnel, maintenance, and professional development are not included in the reopening vaccine rollout. I was told, yes, you are correct. Why then had a letter been sent advising district office personnel and trustees state on the vaccination paperwork that they worked at school sites versus the district office? No answer could be given. I then received a follow-up call a few hours later. Things changed and district office employees would be eligible. If so, then why, I asked, were district office employees and trustees told to classify a school site as their location? Why is it being reported politicians, including city council members and others, received vaccines who at the time were not eligible? No answer was given, as there was no honest answer to be given. Please note, it wasn't until March 5th, 2 days after I called, did the county release breaking news and change their website to reflect all employees of school districts were eligible for the vaccine. My husband often warns our granddaughter, put it out on social media and it's there. The trustee who tweeted and removed his tweet celebrating getting the vaccine via Sweetwater, well, there are screenshots. This district consistently speaks of integrity. This issue shows a lack thereof. There is no clean-up response to justify personnel being told to misrepresent. Is this the foundation you are building your new Sweetwater on? To see how are employees or community expected to trust or respect your leadership after this? Do not receive my words as district office staff were not worthy. They are. But teachers, nurses, etc., currently on site with students should have been seen as a priority. Not you, all on the dais, district office employees, or teachers working from home. Today I drove by the district office as I often do. Parking lot, empty. In closing, Trustee Solis, I would like to publicly thank you for consistently asking for follow-up clarification on questions easily answered raised by the taxpaying community. I have great respect for the way you treat any and all public speakers, not simply the ones you agree with. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next comments are from Katie Davidson Brovick. I don't know if she's connected yet. Tom Leet.
Good evening, Superintendent and school board members. I'm Tom Leet, Eastlake High School teacher and SCA treasurer. And I wanted to start this evening by just shouting out in a public record, I want to give a big fat thank you to everybody involved in the Sharp vaccination clinic right in downtown Chula Vista, where I got vaccinated over the weekend. It was wonderful, it was efficient, and pursuant to that, I want to thank the school board and any district personnel that played a role in advocating to get the county to prioritize teacher vaccinations, to get us our special signups, and to get us through that vaccination. So I asked you for this a month ago, you responded, and I felt heard. So thank you very much for getting out there and getting the county to give us some priority. Now, I also wanted to talk about the reopening, the move to phase 2 that we're talking about for next month. And As a union leader, I've been listening to a lot of my fellow teachers, and I just wanted to put this general concern out to everybody. And that general concern is that we all know that when we go back to being on campus in any capacity, we have the ability to become a super spreader event if we don't follow rigorous procedures. So many concerns that have been raised with me are about procedure, about how do we do everything back on campus. And it's simple stuff like using the bathroom. Where do we eat lunch? Where do we go when we're on prep and another teacher is teaching in our room? Is that even going to be a thing? So there are tons of procedures that need to be worked out, and I know there are groups working on that. But my real question to you, my next ask is, when do you plan to train the staff on these procedures as we return to campus? And I don't just mean a video conference call. I mean, staff on campus walked around, demonstrated, practice what we do for all these things. And then after that, when do you plan to teach the students all these procedures with the same level? Think of it like Army boot camp, because it needs to be trained at boot camp level of so ingrained in everyone that we automatically respond so that we follow these safety procedures. Because there's one more comment I want to share with you that I got from a special ed teacher who teaches moderate severe. And I'll remind you, moderate severe is messy. It involves snot, spit, vomit, feces. Moderate severe is you will be exposed to any pathogen those kids bring in the room. It is our most dangerous situation. And that teacher said, I don't think my return is going to be voluntary. Because that teacher knows they have a special relationship with mod severe kids. And if those mod severe kids come back on campus and suddenly have a different teacher, it's going to traumatize them. So our mod severe teachers are going to return out of the goodness of their own heart, even if they're not yet fully vaccinated. So my last ask for you is, what are you going to do to protect everybody in that room, especially that mod severe room, so that we don't spread this virus? Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no further comments at this time.
Thank you. Clerk of the board, read the items, consent agenda.
Yes, I have some changes to read. On board agenda item G2, there was a correction made to the superintendent's recommendation. The MOU is with Overdrive Education. It had erroneously stated OneDrive Education. Corrections have been made to the item in Novus. Additionally, on board agenda item J1, the analysis should have stated that this is being purchased with pricing and terms per National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance Contract 01-48. The backup document for that contract has been added to the item. Backup documents have also been added to items J2 and J3 for the contracts being used to purchase the items stated on each board item. The following items have been pulled: F3 by staff, G1 by Mrs. Hall and the public, G3 by Mrs. Hall, H1 by Mrs. Hall, H2 by Mr. Tarantino, H3 by Mr. Tarantino, J4 has been withdrawn by staff, K2 is pulled by staff, and L1 is pulled by staff.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Move the second and vote, please.
Damos?
Yes.
Sencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move to F3. Does anybody want to go first?
I'll go.
Thank you, Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura. I want to thank the public for their comments and suggestions. I think they were very good. I would like to, first and foremost, I have to find my notes. Pardon me. I would like to take a moment to recognize a school board member from another school district here in our county and give my gratitude goes out to La Mesa Spring Valley Board Vice President Charday Belfontenot for offering a voice to many families whose voice may have had a hard time being heard. A compassionate and courageous voice for a community of colors. That was my first comment tonight, and I thought it was my most important comment tonight. Next, I would like to let Dr. Aguirre know I received a follow-up email from Aaron Gutierrez from UCSD. He was the facilitator for the vaccine trial town hall we hosted, and he's reaching out to us to follow up with some information and an offer to provide more fact versus fiction education around vaccines. And so I thought I would forward that to you and see if you could offer it to maybe our federal and state programs office to provide it to the parent groups that they have, the ELAC, DLAC, etc. I think it'd be very important information for them. And I want to thank Board Member Segura for stepping up and showing that he was not afraid to take the vaccine. I think that's very important for communities of color to realize that there are challenges for many people that from backgrounds that have historically been marginalized or have been mistreated by different entities under medical conditions. So I really appreciate that you did that. And lastly, I'd like to say I really spent a wonderful day on Saturday morning at the Adelante Mujer conference. I want to give a special thanks to Isabel Velasquez Sandoval and Amy Cuellar Martinez, who were chairing the event. It was really great. They had the Latina of the Year, Chef Claudia Sandoval, who is in San Diego and winner of Master Chef. She was their honoree, and the keynote speaker for their main event, their opening event, was Marissa Bejarano, who is a district attorney for the San Diego County. Very good speakers, and I'm sure inspiring. Miss Garcia, they're both graduates from our district and really wonderful, speakers, and they provided really inspiring speeches to our students. And I also want to give a shout out to the 2 scholarship winners that were honored with scholarships. The first place scholarship received $1,000. It was Marissa Moreno from Southwest High School. Marissa has a GPA of 4.30. She will be attending New York University with a college major in computer science and biology. She is a member of the Teen Council, focusing on really wonderful example of what is happening at Southwest High and at our district. The second place scholarship recipient of $500 was Perla Calderas from Palomar High School. Perla has a 3.70 GPA. She will be attending San Marcos State University and majoring in criminology and justice studies. Contribution to her community is serving as ASB president and babysitting children of single mothers free of charge. Wow, that's really, really great. And the person that impacted her life was the event that impacted her life was the passing of a family member to cancer, a loved one, and many obstacles, including learning English as a second language. Very, very wonderful testimony that she was honored with a scholarship. The committee members that put on this conference, and they do it every year, and it really is, they had great speakers. I attended, I stepped into several of the different breakout sessions, but the 2 that really I felt were the ones I really hung out in and really learned a lot from. One was using your voice to talk about mental health, and the presenter was Claudia Gonzalez. Very good, and really, really shared her own story about her own experiences, but also helped those who were in attendance learn about some of the signs and when to seek help and how to deal with different parts of that. The other one that really I felt was super good was solutions for stressed out students and parents, which I think is very timely in this time of COVID. And that was put on by the presenter was Valerie Sorrentino. And those were really great. I want to thank the whole committee, and I'd read them all, but we'd run out of time. Everyone on the committee member that planned and put on this event, well done. Really appreciated everything you did. There was over 300 students and families attending, and this is the first time it was held as a virtual conference. So I just want to really commend them for pivoting to a virtual platform and still pulling it off and having so many families watching these presentations together. Really great work. Thank you very much. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall, for that comprehensive report, and thank you for all you do for the community and weighing in and pointing out people that need to be pointed out. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to go with the report? Trustee Tarantino, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, President Segura. I would like to begin by congratulating Lucia Perez Valles, her sister Sofia Perez Valles, two students from Olympian High School who participated in the Metropolitan Water District's poster contest. Their posters will be included in the 2021 Water is Life calendar, which is free for the asking, produced by the Metropolitan Water District. Again, to echo what Mr. Amato said, our VAPA program is alive and well, and it enables students to participate in these kinds of events, and they come away winners. So again, congratulations to the two winners of the poster contest. In addition, I'd like to echo Mrs. Hall's congratulations and acknowledgement of all those who participated in the 28th annual Adelante Mujer Conference. Always a great event with very timely speakers and also sessions. And again, I know that these things, kind of events, take a lot of time and preparation, logistics, and particularly in a virtual setting, as was alluded to by Mrs. Hall, and it came off without a flub up. So congratulations, and again, thank you for your dedication to present information to students in terms of life skills, empowerment opportunities, employment opportunities, and focus on education and academic skills, which lead to self-confidence and advocacy in various community endeavors. The last thing I'd like to piggyback on what Mr. Amato said. I'm sorry, Mr. Amato said in terms of the CTE program, and my recollection is it's been a while since we've had an update on the CTE program and the new pathways that they're offering, and perhaps if there's an opportunity to have a board presentation on what's happening new in that program, it might be of value to all of us. And that's all I have, Mr. Segura.
Thank you, Trustee Tarantino. I'll go just real quick. I'd like to just thank the district for sending out the surveys in regard to the students who are going to, or if they're going to return, in some capacity if the schools open up where they can go. As you know, my daughter goes to Castle, so that's a really good idea. So I know that's really important information to know, and I hope that the parents and students will turn that back in. And I know she's also very happy that she's going to be able to start playing soccer at the high school or training, and she's super excited about that and getting her COVID test done today and going to get cleared tomorrow. So I know that'd be very exciting for her to at least get a few games in her last year in high school. So I just want to thank the district, Dr. Gary, and the negotiating team and our partners that we negotiate with, the unions, for their cooperation and our good rapport and our good relationships as we continue to negotiate these agreements to get back to kids in schools in a safe manner. And that's all I have. Let's go to Dr. Arancibia.
Thank you, Trustee Segura. I just wanted to say I had a really, really wonderful experience on Friday. I was invited by a teacher, Christina Espinoza, over at Hilltop High School to participate in the caravan, congratulating the valedictorians and salutatorians from Hilltop High School. And it was really moving. One of the more moving things that I've done in the last year in terms of just getting around the district. We went from San Isidro for about 4 blocks away from my mother, taught for 27 years at Southwest Middle. And we also went to next door to Laker Acres, where my wife was a principal there, assistant principal there over at Lincoln Acres. Next door to it, there was students there. And then we came back to Central Chula Vista. And at each stop, we visited the students and congratulated them on their achievements. And I had to remind them, and made me really emotional to remind them that they're the best that we have in our district. And it's just so wonderful to meet and, even elbow bump or shake hands and then sanitize valedictorian Eric Sanchez and salutatorians Laisha Osuna and Roger Feria Crile. Their stories are unique and wonderful. They're indicative of the great work that the Sweetwater Union High School District is doing and that the instructors at Hilltop are doing, which is really, really moving. It's hard not to get emotional too, because you see the efforts of not only the students, but the parents too. And it reminds me of all of our students, so my daughters as well, so it was just a really, really wonderful event. And I gotta give props and credits to the teachers, the administration, and the folks that put it together. It was rather informal, but it was just really, really meaningful to each one of the students, especially in a year where they're probably not going to be recognized as they should be, So it was just really, really beautiful. My daughter and my wife attended the Adelante Mujer conference as well, and they really appreciated the fact that they had different students from UCSD from different experience, some from the Ivy, like and Superintendent Aguirre, some from San Diego proper, and another one from Los Angeles that are coming to, and explaining their experiences while being first-year students. Was really moving for my wife and my daughter to hear. Lastly, it is Dia de la Mujer, the International Day of the Woman, and it's also my wife's birthday, and the most important woman to me. And I just want to say happy birthday to you, Delia, and I thank you for supporting me in this process and the project, and I hope you have a wonderful birthday. You set a wonderful model for my daughters, and they can only learn the greatest things from you. And that's all I have for my comment.
Thank you, Dr. Arancibia. Just happy birthday to your lovely wife. My wife loves the work she does. They work together, as you know, at the district over in National City, and admires her greatly. But happy birthday. Who would like to go next? Anybody? Anybody have anything else?
Sure, President Segura.
All right, Vice President Solis, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I want to say happy birthday to your wife, Dr. Arancibia. And also, I wanted to say thank you to all our staff for all the hard work they're putting in. This is some crazy times. And I know sometimes as we start thinking about now the vaccines are coming out and things are starting to get a little, we're starting to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to remind everybody that these variants that are out there are a little more aggressive. So I think we don't want to take it too lightly. We still want to wear our face masks and be cautious, wash our hands, and just be careful. We're getting there. We're not there yet. So we don't. Sometimes when I hear people talking, it sounds like, oh, we're out of it, and it's like, no, it's we lost an uncle about a week ago, so it's still it's tough. So we want to be careful. Let's go in there slowly and still take care of each other. And also, I did appreciate what Mr. Leet had mentioned about how are we going to get our teachers and our students to know what to do, what procedures to do. So just if we can get an update on what the plan is for that. Something that came to my mind was maybe some instructional videos because I know we have the students online now, so maybe have them watch a video or something of what we expect for them to do during class time. So if we can get an update on that, that would be great. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Solis. Okay, and with that, we can move to G1, pulled by the public, and Ms. Trustee Hall.
Yes, I have one speaker to this item. Kathleen Cheers.
This year, the agenda item has come before the board several times previously and met with consternation. Trustee Segura, you raised the yearly meeting had no follow-up, and I brought into question some of the committee members. I do see new names included this year. However, once again, I question relatives of staff and a child of a staff member. This has been a tough year for all, so rather than focus on the concerns, respectfully, I would like to offer a few recommendations. Number one, this committee should not simply be a yearly meet and greet with a few ideas shared, but rather ongoing goal-oriented quarterly meetings with minutes of those meetings published. Number two, CTE instructors, one from each area of expertise, should be members. Who better to offer ideas for improvement? You have some highly qualified instructors with years of experience under their belts, willing to share and build on the CTE program. Number three, the community has virtually no knowledge of all CTE has to offer. A better job is needed in publicizing CTE program offerings to students and parents. Number four, this board should consider identifying a specific school site for each CTE program. Example, building trades, plumbing, electrical, and carpentry at once. Number five, a true effort needs to be done to partner with employers. For example, a partnership with a particular car dealership, let's say Ford. Corporations are always looking for positive press while capturing tax write-offs. Auto shop certificates based on hands-on hours under the hood. Students doing what they enjoy while working towards graduation requirements and a successful, good-paying career. All of my recommendations are not my brainchild, but rather programs which were successfully offered in the past by our district about 20 years ago. You spend millions upon millions on sports facilities. If you want to plan for the future, ADA is in need of a draw. A true CTE trades program would be a win-win situation. Mechanics, carpentry, construction, trade, and plumbing. Pick one, pick two, pick three. Surely there are grants, corporate partnerships, local employers who would be inspired to join such an effort. Please, please consider this recommendation. The students will benefit and the district will benefit. Follow up on Ms. Hall's comments regarding Trustee Segura's vaccine bravery. Leaving his tweet up might have had accomplished the stated goal if it ever was the true goal. I thank you for your time.
There are no further speakers to this item.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. You had pulled this.
Yes, I want to say I'm glad that we have some representation from the building trades. I would like to see that expanded to some of the specific trades so that we have some of that advisory, but I'd also like a report from the advisory committee. I think that's really, I believe they're established to advise staff, which is great, but I would like to hear something back from them. And I would really like to hear what happened last year when they were, because a couple of the people that I think you requested, Mr. Segura, to be added last year, I'm not sure if they ever got to meet, but I would like to know that. And if they didn't meet, then could they be invited back to be part of this committee? And that's all.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Yeah, I actually reached out to Christina Marquez. She's the outreach coordinator and graduate of the apprenticeship at the IBW 569 electrical workers, and does all the outreach for them, and does a great job. And she has partnered with a couple of schools at several events almost yearly. And I had recommended her name last year, but she said that she didn't get contacted. Maybe it was because I didn't send her her contact info, but I truly greatly appreciate it if we could get that. her name added. I've given the information to Dr. Aghetti. And I understand they just meet once a year, and I know we've had this discussion before, and it's not because they're only meeting once because nobody cares about it. I know everybody has a lot to do, but I definitely think there could be more done in this area. If we could figure out how, that'd be great. And those partnerships, because that's really how, like the public mentioned, Ms. Cheers, that the corporate partnerships are really out there. I know I've gotten some of the contractors that I used to work with, they would happily, contribute, send money to expose students to the electrical careers. And I know there's a lot, when I know people at the convention center, when that's up and running, I know a lot of people, so I really, anything I could help with. And I kind of like to know what happens at a meeting, and just kind of what's going on, not to be nosy, just see what's going on, and if we could help. I know a lot of you trustees know people, and that's, that would be very beneficial for our students in our community. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve item G1.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Adamos,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
That moves us to G3, approve the consolidated CONAP winter report for 2020 and 2021, pulled by Trustee Hall.
Oops. Thank you. I do. I really appreciate that we got the attachments that show the ranking of the Title I schools. I really appreciate that. I know that I can tell by the changes in free and reduced lunch counts at some of these schools that they've been really working hard to get applications submitted, because they've gone up in the numbers. From prior years, I remember for several years I was on the DLAC, and I mean, DPAC, it wasn't called DPAC then, it was called District Advisory Council, the DAC. So I know that a lot of these have gone up, which is really, I'm glad that they're reporting. The parents are submitting their applications. What I would like to know is, I requested couple of board meetings ago information around how the allocations are calculated, and I think what they gave me it was when we were having items on the board agenda being paid for a private nonprofit schools having equitable services out of the Title I funding, which is perfectly fine. They're supposed to get those services. It's part of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, but I would like to know how those are calculated along with all of the school allocations. And that's really my question, to have perhaps a presentation well before the board adopts a budget, that we understand how those calculations are done. Because I know there are several different ways you could calculate allocating the funds out. And what I've been trying to advocate for since I was elected before I was elected on the board, I think even Ms. Estrada from the can confirm this fact, that I've always allocated for funding at the highest poverty schools to be a little bit different, a higher amount go to those schools, because obviously the need is much higher. And when you're looking at 90% or 89% and above, or even 80% and above, that's a significant number of students that are really in dire need. I also understand it, and I didn't pull the parent involvement policy or administrative reg that's coming to us tonight, but I would like to say that I would hope that parents at those Title I schools with the highest poverty really have kind of a more significant impact on how those funds are are allocated and used, not just at their own school, but how the formula is decided on how to allocate across the district. And when you get them on a committee where everybody is from every school, you know, because every school gets LCFF money or concentration money or supplemental money under LCFF. And those people are on the same advisory committee that decides the Title I funding at the district level, you know, the DPAC and the DLAC. What I would like to see is more weight is given to those Title I parents at those high level, high poverty schools, so that their voice is really impacting how those funds are distributed in a different way than, because when everybody has a voice across all these different schools, it's not the same. And because and that's my experience. I just wanted to bring that up if you can really look into that. And I know that's a hard thing to do right now in COVID, but there's so many things on the plate of our administration at the district and on our principals and on our teachers, just trying to get all the logistics around how to bring kids back to school. I understand that, so I don't, you know, but I really want to put that on the plate, that we really figure that out. So I appreciate your help on that, and that's what I had to say. And if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Vote, please.
Yes.
Aranzibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Let's go to H1, pulled by Trustee Hall. The National City PD contract.
Yes, and I don't really have any questions around this, and I realize it's from an invoice that you're paying that for services that were already provided before a lot of us realized that there wasn't an MOU in place. But because I voted on the I voted no on the Chula Vista MOU. I feel obligated. I should follow through with this one too and vote no. So that's all I was wanting to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Do we have any other comments from the board around this item? Dr. Adesivia.
Well, this is, I think, one of the things that we have to look at item H, I think it's H2 and H1 together, in the sense that where we're looking at this, and I'd like us to kind of conceive of kind of wraparound services that will prevent or kind of diminish the need for having officers. And I think that those two board agenda items are actually in conversation with each other. Long term is how we see the future of policing in our district. And I think we have to have a longer. We talked about this last meeting as well, that we're going to have this longer conversation with Dr. Moore, with Dr. Aguirre, and the board to be able to make sure how we're going to approach this in the future and what's necessary and feasible, right? I also know that the wraparound services offered by the district attorney's office is actually, I've seen it at other districts, and it's really, really effective at the level of de-escalation, intervention by social service agencies that actually help us out. So I think this might be the pathway that we might choose in the future. I think is a good way of thinking about it.
Thank you, Dr. Adesivia. I'm sorry, Dr. Aguirre. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Segura. I think Trustee Arancibia is spot on. Item H1 is something that we're bringing forward. Again, it's with, at this point, kind of a matter of process. But the reality is H2, I think, is we're in a moment of transition. And that moment of transition is how do we work with our law enforcement to ensure we're providing service through a prism and a lens of support. And so, for example, when police have an interaction or an event with one of our students, and there's a need there for support, i.e., it could be something like mental health services, counseling services, or whatnot, helping to build that bridge between law enforcement and the school district. So we really take our work from a perspective of support, I think is where we're going to be moving with this model to ensure we're looking at the work we do differently to better support all of our students with a very strong lens on equity. So I think it's very important to kind of just keep in mind that these two items are reflective of the moment of transition we are going through.
Thank you, Dr. Getty. I would agree with a lot of that. And I've had conversations offline with many people about this agenda items from last meeting and this meeting. Assistant APs, who, they're there on the ground and, tell me that this work is needed there. And then I talk to students who I say, how do you feel when there's a police officer on your campus? And they just said, it makes me feel yucky. It doesn't feel right. And I could get that. Like we had that same conversation last time. So I know we're going to have a much expanded discussion on this. And I appreciate that. And I just think, this is once again, it's just kind of something we've inherited, and just doing it the same way over and over. Times are changing though. And I think we really need to change as well in regards to how we approach policing and our relationship with the police and how they work with us at the school districts, schools. So if there's for any other comments, I'll entertain a motion for H1.
So moved.
I'll second. Vote, please.
Adamos,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
No.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes yes, 1 no.
Thank you. We'll go to H2, which is the MOU with SDPD and Trustee Tarantino that pulled it, sir.
Yes, I was just going to reiterate everything that has already been said by both Dr. Aghetti and also Dr. Adencibia, that this should be what we look at in terms of the next steps in terms of social justice and policing. And so that's why I pulled it, just to make that comment. I agree with everything that's been said before. And if there's no other comments, I will make a motion to approve H2.
I'll second.
Second. Solis.
You're muted. I don't know if you told me I could call the vote.
Oh, yes, vote please. Thank you.
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to H3, the authorization for negotiations for the COVID testing. And that was pulled by Mr. Tarantino.
Thank you, President Segura. I was just going to ask, a lot of our students are 18 years old, and I was wondering if, it asks for a permission, a parent permission. Would an 18-year-old be able to write his or her own permission to get tested, or would we still have to revert to the parent in order to get that permission?
Thank you, Trustee Tarantino. I'll ask our general counsel to provide response to that question.
Okay, thank you.
So while we are looking at overarching parent permission, I'm in a situation where a student is 18, a student at 18 could make those medical decisions upon their own.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Just a question for you, Ms. Carbuccia. Does that change at all, or have any? This is just for me, for my own information. Does it change at all with the fact that if they're on their parents' insurance, right? Because even if they're 18, their parents' insurance may preclude that, or am I incorrect in that saying, with that assessment?
So right now, under both California and federal law, testing and vaccines are covered. And so I think there may be times where we talk about billing back, but in the middle of a pandemic, I don't think that's the place we are right now.
That's what I was my question. Thank you.
If there's no
I'll
other
move
further-
approval. I'll
Thank
move
you.
approval of H3.
I'll second that.
Second.
Move to second. Vote, please.
Adamos,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes,
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All righty. Let's go to K2, the report on the second interim.
Thank you, President Segura. On this item, we're going to have Dr. Sawkill provide our second interim financial report. So with that, Dr. Sawkill.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. I think Deanne, she'll be sharing the presentation here shortly. Perfect. So good evening, President Segura, Board Trustees, Superintendent Aguirre, Cabinet members, and the community. What we're sharing this evening is our second interim report on the financial status of the district's 2021 budget. And if Deanne, you can go to the next slide, please. And so these are the items we'll be touching upon and highlighting for the board and the public. Key elements regarding the education code requirement, timelines, assumptions, also our cash flow consideration as it relates to the budget, our restricted funds, and then our staff recommendation. Next slide, please. So throughout the year, the last update we provided to the board was our first interim update, which was in December. This is our second opportunity to look at our current year budget and then also look at the 2 out years. That is the requirement of the interims. At this point in time, we look at activity, all of our actual activity that has posted through January 31st. We look at any new variables that we're aware of at this point, and we'll highlight those here shortly. And then we also look at what the impact will be in the out years. One key factor at this reporting period is that we do have an update from the governor's January proposal. So some of those factors are incorporated into this budget plan. What's also unique with the interims, both at first and at second, this is the opportunity where the board certifies the financial condition for the current budget year and the 2 out years based on the projections. And what that certification means, there's 3 different categories. Positive entails that the financial position for all 3 years can be met. There's a balanced budget, all the fund balance requirements are met. And then we've got qualified, which is we can meet 1 of the years, which is the case here, and we'll provide that shortly here, the financial details. But there might be some still financial considerations to factor in the out years. And the negative is unable to meet the financial obligations for all 3 years. So we did move in a positive direction at first interim, shifting to the qualified certification. The County Office of Ed did affirm that movement in that direction back in January when they reviewed the district's first interim. And then again, we're keeping things status quo based on the financial information. And this is something that we've also shared with the County Office of Ed. We met with them last week with the representatives to review this PowerPoint and also highlight a key elements of the standardized account code structure, which is in the board's package. It's the actual document and report that we need to submit to the county and to the state. And so, Deanne, if you can go to the next slide. And so here we're just providing the visual as to where we're at in terms of the timeline from a budget standpoint and the work that's going to coincide at this point. Now that the governor released the proposal in January, we've now also started the budget process with our schools and departments in planning ahead for 21-22. And what we have here in green is our point in time as it relates to the current year budget. So we've got a couple of things going on at the same time. And if the board recalls at our last board meeting too, we also provided an update on the 1920 audit. So we've got 3 different years we're working with. And so over the course of the next few months, we've got a couple of deliverables as it relates to the budget plan for next year, as well as a local control accountability plan. You can go to the next slide, Deanne. And so I'd like to highlight a couple of the assumptions, and if you could scroll to the next one. At this point in time, if you can go back to the graph, thank you. In terms of the various elements that really do impact the revenues for the district, part of the local control funding formula, that's a calculation. We get a lot of those updates, again, based on cost of living adjustment numbers, our enrollment, our average daily attendance, and we review that throughout the year. And that is a calculator that we too, during the interim process, review that with the County Office of Ed, and they sign off on that. What I'd like to highlight here in looking at the graph, this has given us another opportunity to look at our enrollment for current year. So you note on there that it's 37,060, I believe it is, kind of small there. As a point of reference, looking back a year, back in June when we were doing the budget development, the number we had was 37,468. So as you can see, that's further declined from what we originally thought the budget would be back in June to where we're at now. And that is a steep decline. We'll look at it in the next graph here in a little bit. But just comparing to the prior year, we've lost almost about 1,500 students compared to last year. From a funding standpoint, why you see this here blocked out, we had also noted this during first interim. The governor did put in place what's known as the hold harmless. So the average daily attendance component of how the districts get paid will remain unchanged for this current year and next year. But as you can see, that change, because of the compounding declining enrollment, will have a significant impact to the district's funding. And we'll see that when we look at our multi-year projections here shortly. And so if Deanne, you can go to the next slide. This here just shows it from a table format. So you can see that change of 1493 from last year to this year. And then as we look ahead, we work very closely with our research and evaluation, with Dr. Winter's team, with Cabinet, looking at our enrollment projections, looking at the cohorts coming into the district from our feeder districts. And we are seeing that decline in the out years. We've also been working with an outside demographer, Davis Demographics. They've provided some preliminary information that also validates these trends that we're seeing. So these are our key factors into our revenues. And if Deanne, you can go to the next slide. This one here now does have a positive in terms of what the governor released back in January. We did for cost of living adjustment. This is a factor that goes into that revenue calculation. What we had in the adopted budget at the state level all the way through first interim was the assumption that it was a 0% cost of living adjustment over the next 3 years, current year and then the 2 years. And that applies to special education and other funding sources. What you see here and what the governor released is a 3.84% cost of living adjustment in next year, and also then a 2.98 in 22-23. So that has kind of a compounding effect when you have that 3.84 and then you compound it with the 2.98. One thing to caution the board is these numbers could change as we get closer to May revise when the governor provides another update on the budget. These particular percentages are very much dependent on the federal calculations, and we should have those around early May. So again, in conversations with the County Office of Ed, they also cautioned others are using much more conservative numbers possibly. Again, something to be very aware of that could shift as we get closer to May and then budget adoption in June. And then Deanne, if you can go to the next slide, please. So with this information, and I don't know if Deanne, can you make it a little bit larger? Here we're showing the differences from reporting period since our 45-day to our first interim. And we've called out a few points because of the impact to the current year and then the out years. For this current year, I'd like to highlight is our unduplicated percentage. You can see when we reported at first interim is a little over 57%. And where we're at now for second interim is a little over 61%. That is attributed to a lot of the efforts and also the granting at the state that allowed us to go beyond the October 31st date with our free and reduced lunch applications, where we were able to make phone calls to verify income. There was a significant effort with our school principals and their staff over the months of November and December, and it's attributed, and you can see that here now that we're at 61%. With that said, it helps our current year revenues with our supplemental dollars. So you can see it's a little over $2 million change. And so that's a positive impact to our current year. And then you'll see that when we go to the next few slides. Then on the out years, now you'll see where we had 0% cost of living adjustment. What I had shared earlier, we're at 3.84. And then I wanted to highlight the funded ADA, going back to that hold harmless by the state. When that goes away in 22-23, you see that significant decline in that average daily attendance dropping between the 2 years. Okay, and again, these are all factors that go into that calculator for revenues. And you can see that significant jump in terms of bottom line impact because of that cost of living adjustments, a little almost $20 million for next year, and then about $34 million the following year, based on the information today. And if Deanne, you can go to the next slide. And again, these next few slides are key assumptions going into revenues. Again, you've got noted here at the bottom, it says governor's budget proposal. We also rely on, and if Deanne, you can go to the next slide, is the School Services of California dartboard. We get some of this information. One thing I'd like to call out, again, looking at that multi-year approach, is our STRS and PERS. The governor, along with the state legislature, has made commitments through the budget plan of keeping these rates low, and particularly this year and next year. And you can see that with the STRS going from 16.15 to 15.92. But then you look at the 22-23 year, and there's an uptick to 18% for STRS. And then you can see that also with PERS, it goes up to 26%. And again, so those variables do increase costs as we plan and project ahead in the out years. Again, something to closely monitor as the budget work is being done at the state level, and what that may or may not look in May timeframe, if there are any changes or additional commitments made by the governor and the state legislature on that. Okay, if Deanne, you can go to the next slide. Again, these are our reserves. We have restored the 2% required economic uncertainty across the 3 years. We also have our Qualified Zone Academy bond. That does mature in September of 21, so that's why you see that says 0 in the out years. If you can go to the next slide, please. And now it's taking those assumptions and looking at this in a multi-year view. This first slide here is looking at the current year budget, 2021, and then a side-by-side of the different reporting periods where we've brought this information to the board. And you can see the significant changes, right? Where we were back in June, how things were with the state budget, then with the revisions that were made in August, which is known as our 45-day, and then first interim and second interim. So the revenue changes going from the 398 million to 401 are primarily attributed to what I mentioned earlier on the supplemental dollars as attributed to those unduplicated percentages. And then looking at our bottom line with expenditures, things are pretty consistent in most areas. Where it goes up a little bit on supplies, again, it's because we are anticipating those revenues with LCFF, LCAP, and then we have the corresponding increase in those areas in supplies. Our contributions are looking a little bit less so from the general fund standpoint. So all of those pluses and minuses, puts and takes, does result in an ending balance or projected ending balance of June of a little over 44 million. So if you can go to the next slide, Deanne. And so with that, then you kind of look at the multi-year view. This is where now we're shifting to current year. So that 44 million, looking at column B, row 12, we take those amounts and then we take the set aside. So you see below that in the subsequent rows, that economic uncertainty, all those different components, then that leaves a net balance of 26 million. And so that then does carry forward into the next year. And then you can see operationally, looking at column C and then row 11, we actually almost break even based on our projections at this point in time. That with the revenues that we anticipate and the expenditures, that would be a break even. And so with that and that other beginning balance of carrying forward from 2021 and then noting all of our set-asides result in an ending balance for fund balance, and then that carries forward into 22-23. And that carry forward, that fund balance is key, because as I mentioned earlier, that's where we have the decline, where the average daily attendance and all those factors come into play. And then you see in column D, row 11, a shortfall. So this is what's one of the qualifiers or reasons why we cannot be positive certified at this point, is because we do show a structural deficit of about $13 million. And so it does go into those reserves as a balance, but operationally it is a structural deficit based on the current assumptions we know of today. And if Deanne, you can go to the next slide, please. And these are our restricted resources, so we anticipate those to be spent as such. One of the key changes in terms of revenues that you see in the out years are that we're anticipating, we've had all of our CARES Act monies come in, we've had the ESSER 2 monies come in, those are reflected in here. So we worked with the county to show the revenue and the related expenditure. And with the most recent passage by the Senate, we'll await that what those monies and those allocations might be with the next stimulus bill for the district. And then if Deanne, you can go to the next slide. Here's just a snapshot of what we've been sharing at prior board presentations and also our audit and finance subcommittee, the different learning loss funds and the reporting that we do on a quarterly basis. And then this also reflects the new money that was received under ESSER 2 of $34 million. And that budget plan is still being worked on in terms of where those dollars will be committed to. We can go to the next few slides. Yeah, so cash flows. So again, from the budget standpoint, now it's looking at how that's connected to the timing of those receipts of revenues and then also the cash outgoes for payroll and for vendor payments. As we've shared with the board, we did have a loan that we've pursued that aside from interfund borrowing from our CFDs. We've been working with the county treasurer over the last 2 years. So we continue to pay that. That's the left block at the bottom. We've been paying that down. We anticipate receiving the next property tax installment payments will come through in April. And so that obligation, that borrowing will be paid in full. And so the other piece, though, to the right, based on what the board took action in December, the state has now started their deferrals of the district's revenues. This started back in February. They deferred in February 53% of the district's apportionment or entitlement. And so that money, as you see here, will not be paid. That $10 million will not be paid until November. And so the one in March will be 82% deferred, and we don't anticipate receiving that until October. And so with that, we are looking to work with California School Financing Authority for a tax revenue anticipation note. It's a short-term borrowing to cover those deferrals during the next few months, to cover then our district's working capital or the cash flow considerations. We are scheduled to have that fund next month. We've been working very closely with them and also the County Office of Education because they've had to review cash flows. We've recently received, because the district is in qualified status, any debt such as this does require the County Office of Ed to review the cash flows and issue what's known as an ability to pay letter. That payments, it appears payments can be made. And so we just received that letter on Friday from the County Office of Ed. And then the next few slides are all of our restricted funds. I would just like to point out on this Fund 11, we've been working very closely with Dr. Moore and Dr. Burke. As you can see, their spend down There's been different considerations review of one-time in nature, and the board has took action on some of those purchases for furniture and some technology. So that's reflected here as they look to spend that and make those investments. But you'll see that the fund balance has changed from the 45-day. And then the next slide, just to highlight here with Fund 13, we are looking very closely and working with Mr. Span in this area, particularly as we build the budget for next year, as to what claims may come in, looking at what revenues might come in. So this ending fund balance of a little over $2 million will be needed to absorb any shortfalls that might come in at the start of the school year and reduce claims. So that will keep the board apprised as we're building the budget over the next few months. And the next few slides are the capital funds. And so, Deanna, you can probably scroll to the end. It's just a snapshot of each of our capital funds. And then the staff recommendation bringing forward to the board the package, like I said earlier, includes the standardized account code structure report. We're bringing forward continued with the qualified certification in accordance with the education code. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Selkow, for that presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
Do we take public comment first, or?
Yes. Thank you. Do we have public comment, Deanne?
There are no speakers to this item.
Oh, wow. So once again, do we have any comment from the board?
I have some questions.
Trustee Hall, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Salkeld. I'm very glad that you give clear information, and really appreciate that. I just want to thank you for that. On the ADA and enrollment assumptions for the out years, could you explain why the ADA is dropping 700 students from what we had? Let me get to my notes here. I think it changed from the 45-day budget, what you're projecting in the year 22-23. Can you explain that for me, please?
So right, for 22-23, we had almost
700 students different from the original budget to the second interim.
Right, so when it's the out year projections, we work very closely with Dr. Winters and with Cabinet. So we rely on the latest information, looking at the latest analysis from our feeder district. So we continue to review that through the year. And so we make those modifications during the first and second interim as we start to see the trends, particularly with such a loss.
Not enrollment, it's ADA I'm asking about. So it's on page 9.
So there is a corresponding as decline in enrollment, our decline in the ADA will also go down. So as enrollment contracts, so will that decrease. And we do, on average, the district is around 94%. We're just and at this point in time, it looks a little bit higher, as you see 97%. That's the hold harmless clause for that particular year.
I'm trying to get to the enrollment we had in our budget adoption, 3706366668. So we dropped a lot on every year from the original budget adoption. And that's based on what we know now, right?
Right, even during budget adoption.
This year's actual enrollment, even though we have the enrollment, the actual enrollment is actually different from what is being funded because we have the hold harmless going on again, and that's going on in the coming year, right?
Correct.
The 1 year out, but 2 years out, we're calculating that will go away. So we're looking at what we really are, where we're at now, and projecting from there.
Right.
And where we're at now is basically probably I'm hoping it'll change because we have a different atmosphere across our country right now with how we treat immigrants and things like that. But I do understand that we're in a declining enrollment environment across the state, so I appreciate that. And you did bring it up from the first interim, so it is greater than the first interim's projection for the ADA, which was only 33,870 at both grade levels. And in the second interim, it's 34,150. So I appreciate that it is actually being looked at across the different time spans. So I thank you for that. And my other question would be on the QZAB, and we talked about this when we, the QZAB, we know that the $5 million QZAB is going to be paid off in 2021. So this year it will be paid off, which is why you're showing $0 obligated in the out years on your reserve assumptions on slide 12. And I believe it's also on slide 15.
Right there.
So in our financial audit from Crow that we adopted at our last board meeting, there are two QZABs spoken about, and I just want to clarify for the public why we don't show a reserve in 21-22 and 22-23 for that second QZAB, and what that really means, where it really sits for our public. Thanks.
So this one here, that's the 5 million. That's our 2005 QZAB. And then we do have another one, it's a 2010 QZAB. This one, this 2005 that's reflected here, is set up and for purposes of the payment, it's paid at once when it matures. So that's why it's set aside and earmarked for when that is paid at that point in time, September 2021, this year. The other QZAB, it is built in the budget. It is in the operational piece of things with the principal and the payment. That is made on an annual basis. So unlike this one that is paid at one time upon maturity, the other one is paid annually. And we do have those items in the board packet that reflects the debt obligation. There's also, this is noted on the criteria and standards. And as you mentioned, Trustee Hall, it is also disclosed on our annual audit reports. All right, I think you're.
Thank you for that, yes. And then on slide 15, again, would you please confirm that the out year revenue increase is the only impact on that increase would be the COLA that's assumed, right? That is the only assumption you've put into the revenue increase.
Correct, primarily, yes, as noted there, based on the governor's budget proposal, yes.
And then on the unrestricted revenue in the multi-years, which is on page 16, you would not be assuming an increase to federal revenue in the out years because there is no adopted budgets yet by the federal government, right? Correct? If there is, say that the President Biden's proposals of increasing revenues for districts in the special ed to fully fund special ed, which we would really love that happening, that would change this projection, right? Is that correct?
It would be it'd be the timing, correct, as to when we receive those allocations. So we work with our SELPA and correct if once we have that information and we start to build that out for 21-22, then we would factor that in.
So that wouldn't be until October when the federal government passes their budget, though, right?
Correct. So there would be a lag.
We would not be able to see that in our original budget adoption in June. It would be something that we would have to catch up with, and probably not until the second interim of next year.
Correct.
Would that be correct?
Depending on the timing and when we would get the latest information, correct?
Right.
We cannot assume at this point.
Exactly. And the same would go for the Title I, Title II, Title III under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. We would not see any increases, even though the federal government may pass them eventually, hopefully. We wouldn't see them or be able to impact our budgets for those increases until probably the 22-23 fiscal year.
Yeah, it depends on the timing. We build our budget with a preliminary allocation, and typically the CDE will release allocations around September. This past year was actually a little bit earlier in August. Then we would make adjustments, but it would be all based on the information we would get from the federal government and the California Department of Education.
Right. Well, we could, I mean, the bottom line is we could actually provide some kind of projection ourselves should that action take place in Washington, D.C. And we know it's coming, even though it hadn't been actually acted on in our own state. However, we would probably get pushback from our county about doing that. And we would really have to come together and really discuss how we approach it. Because if it is really going up significantly, we don't want to wait too long and then have to play catch up with it, because that means the students we have in our classes now would not feel the benefit of those dollars. So there's a real balance act going on, and the districts are really part of that, and our budget analysts are really play significant roles in that by paying attention to what's going on, both the federal legislature and the state legislature, so that we can be proactive in planning and being prepared with those budgets. So that's what I wanted to point out here to my fellow trustees, and I really appreciate your clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Did anybody else have any comments on this presentation?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it appears to me, just in reading it, and I want to be really clear about this, Dr. Saka and Dr. Aguirre, that the enrollment projections are very, very conservative. I mean, in the way that we're preparing it, we're actually being very, very conservative. So there is room for good surprises that could come up post-COVID, in terms of our enrollments. Yeah, okay, that's all I wanted to throw out there. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, President Segura. I just wanted to add that I really appreciate the work of the entire team, because this continues the gradual incremental improvement to our financial position as a district, and to continue down the path of stability. So I just wanted to mention a note of appreciation for all the work that's gone in by the entire team, obviously being led with the finance team, making sure we have this information, the rest of the team making sure we're making fiscally sound decisions. So I just wanted to make a brief note that this continues us down that path of rehabilitating our district's budget.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Was that somebody?
Motion to approve the report, if that's an actionable item.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Let's vote, please.
Adamos?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so let's move to L1, the superintendent search process. Go ahead, Dr. Aguirre.
President Segura, I will exit the conversation at this point, just to ensure that this is a separate process, so I will recuse myself.
Appreciate it. So we have from the San Diego County Office of Ed, we have Yolanda Rogers and Carol Tomayo. Is Chris on the call too?
No, he's not on the call this evening.
Okay, so with that, we'll just hand it off to you to give your presentation. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Well, good evening, President Segura and members of the Board of Trustees and members of the community. It is my pleasure to return this evening to provide an update of where we are in the search for superintendent. I am joined this evening by my colleague, Director of Human Resources, Carol Tamayo. She will also be co-presenting with me this evening. As you are well aware, the single most important decision that a school board makes is choosing the right individual to serve as superintendent. Such a decision benefits from staff and community input around critical leadership attributes desired in a new leader, community and staff values and expectations that inform the recruitment process, and identification of salient themes necessary, and necessary leadership skills. Through our support for the board as they make this important decision, we remain committed to facilitating a clear and transparent process by providing guidance to the board during all phases. We are committed to bringing forward highly qualified candidates, ensuring that the search is confidential, engaging in ongoing communication, and additionally, we're committed to gathering input from identified stakeholder groups and community members to inform the process. Lastly, we will screen applicants based on board-approved criteria and ultimately provide a written report of all applicants along with our recommendation for those who best meet the board-approved criteria. And ultimately, the selection of the next superintendent is a decision made by the school board. The approach we've taken through this process to develop a process that welcomed and encouraged input via Zoom and Microsoft Teams meetings. We engaged in interactive stakeholder forums, one-to-one meetings with board members, and additionally, we provided access to an online survey in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Tagalog, and that was posted for a 13-day period, pardon me. This evening, we will review the timeline and accomplishments, the data collected, and allow for questions and answers while also sharing the next steps. Our presentation will provide a summary of themes that emerged from the stakeholder input sessions and online survey, as well as our next steps. I now invite Carol Tamayo to review the timeline and the data collection process.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. I am happy to present here today. We're going to be taking a look now at our proposed timeline. So good news, today we actually started the recruitment process. The position for superintendent has been posted on EdJoin, and we are getting ready to also post in various other trade publications and really getting excited about getting you the best new superintendent. So March 8 is today. We're beginning our recruitment and doing our governing board presentation. We will be posting this position for approximately 3.5 weeks, almost 4 weeks. And on April 2nd, the recruitment closes. And during that time, we'll be pulling applications, making copies for the board, and generating a list of different things that we're going to, based on the board's criteria, that we're going to provide to the board so that they can be able to look at the applications and start to get them ready and decide who they want to do interviews with. So around April 12th, there'll be the initial interviews in closed session where the board will select finalists and SDCOE will begin to conduct the reference checks. Then the week of April 17th, 18th, the board will hold their final selection interview in closed session. And on the 19th, they'll announce their final selection in open session during a special board meeting. The following week, there'll be validation visit, most likely will be online, to visit where the person is coming from, get a feel for what they are and who they are as a leader, and begin to negotiate the contract. And then on May 10th, the board will be approving the contract. So we are moving right along. One of the things that really was interesting and really uplifting to me were the stakeholder group forums. I attended each of the stakeholder group forums, Yolanda and myself, or Chris and myself. And I just have to say that the staff, the students, especially the students touched my heart, but the staff, the students, all of the stakeholders were so passionate about, getting the right person into this position. and sharing so openly with us what their different feelings were, what their concerns were, and what their desires were for characteristics of the next superintendent. And it was really uplifting to get to talk to people and hear firsthand. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I know that Yolanda agrees with me that it was incredibly powerful to hear people's voices and see people in person, Zoom person, and just get a feel for what they really wanted from their next superintendent. So as you can see, we started with classified administrators, counselors, CBOC and the audit team, certificated, the African American community groups, and Filipino community groups. We also had the student representative group, which again, I will just say just touched me as a former teacher. To see kids in any aspect is amazing. So they were incredibly eloquent and just really a joy. DPAC, we had a community forum in the evening with in Spanish, presented in Spanish, and we took comments in Spanish. It was incredibly passionate, and people were very eloquent about what they wanted to say, and walked away with a really good feeling of what people were feeling and thinking about. Our LGBTQIA group was amazing. That is an incredible resource in your community, and just amazing parents with incredible stories to tell. DLAC, we had our community forum in English and our Latinx community group. So really, really exciting. So here's what we asked. We asked, what are the strengths of Sweetwater? What do you like about Sweetwater? What, you know, and some of the themes and the trends that came out of that were just, you know, we grew up here. This is our community. We love this place. We also asked, what are the immediate and the long-term challenges that the next superintendent will face, and got some really good data on that as well. What desired professional experiences and personal characteristics would you like to see the new superintendent bring to this position? And then what do they need to know about Sweetwater and the larger community? And then the very last question, which I know Yolanda will go into more detail about, was, is there any other information that you would like to share with the Board of Trustees? That was also a very powerful question. Got a lot of really good data on that. So how did we collect it? We began with the trustees and then moved into the 14 stakeholder group forums. And we also had an online survey in English, Spanish, and Filipino. We collected between the two over 1,400 responses, and we compiled the data based on the feedback that we received. One of the things that we had some quantitative data, just numbers of, you know, what do you think is the most important? What do you think is not as important? But we also had a lot of qualitative data, which was really the meat of taking the survey and giving us all of these major themes that we identified based on the number of times that it occurred in people's answers. And just a few quick data points, 1,300 community responses. Most of the survey responses were in English, but we did have 147 in Spanish and 4 in Filipino. We had 100 plus stakeholder forum participants, and approximately 60, a little over 60% of the respondents have students who actually attend Sweetwater Unified High School District schools. So I will pass this back to Yolanda.
You're muted, Dr. Rogers.
The theme of the evening. I wanted to share and reiterate what Carol mentioned. The community and Sweetwater, they are very interested in, we're very interested in participating and eager to share, as evidenced by the number of participants and the input sessions and the survey. The level of commitment by the stakeholder groups and parents was very evident. As she mentioned, over 1,400 respondents, including our students who took the time to give input. And this is indicative of the passion, the desire, and commitment to make the best decision for students. The parents, community, they all truly care about the district. They're committed to the district and supporting. In the next few slides, including this one, I will highlight the 5 to 6 major themes that emerged. You will note that we distinguish from the stakeholder forums as well as the online surveys. And some of the data you're going to notice that overlaps, but I will also share throughout a few direct quotes that are related to some of the themes that are on the slides. And so on this particular question on the survey, we asked, what do you consider to be the top strengths of Sweetwater Union High School District? And participants were able to select 5. So the stakeholder forums revealed major themes around parent and community engagement that fosters student learning, another strength being the diversity of the community supportive education, and student readiness for college and career, as well as site administrators who understand student and family needs. The online survey revealed that extracurricular activities and programs were a strength, the availability of technology, the diverse community was identified as a strength, as well as the learning environment for students and student safety. And I will tell you that folks were, again, very happy to respond. And one particular quote was, "It's amazing how well you have transitioned the kids to online school. Great job in a difficult situation." Next slide. The next question here is, what are the improvement areas for Sweetwater? That's a question that was asked in the forums, but also on the survey we asked the question. But I'd like to emphasize that there's a great desire from the community that the Board of Trustees is committed to conducting a complete comprehensive search that's open, honest, and includes a transparent process that's fair and equitable, that results in the best match for the community. Members expressed concerns that they just really want to make sure that their input is truly going to be considered as you all move forward with the process as a board. So back to the questions that we asked, what do you consider to be the top areas of improvement for Sweetwater Union High School District? And we were asked to select 5 on the survey. But the stakeholder forums revealed trust and transparency as an area of improvement, the district understanding and support of equity, diversity, and social justice, stewardship of financial resources, district preparedness, engagement and interactions, student safety and bullying were also that rose to the top 5. The online surveys revealed similarly stewardship of financial resources, board members who represent the needs of the community, safe and well-maintained facilities, and student readiness for college and career. That was listed as a strength and also an area of improvement. Some of the a quote that we pulled out, I think it's critical, verbatim, that the board have a thorough and transparent process that engenders trust and sets up the next superintendent that is selected for success. Someone that's reflective of the diversity of the community and knows the community well, has a track record and commitment to race equity and social justice. Next slide. The next question what's the focus for the superintendent? The specific question in the survey we asked, which of the following priorities should be the focus of the next superintendent? And we had a list of priorities, and they were asked to select 5. In the forums, same question was asked, but in just an open-ended question. And the forums revealed top themes as equity and inclusion, being some concerns there. The importance of student social and well-being being a focus, staff and community relations, the financial issues of the district, and reopening of schools in a safe manner. Online surveys, district financial issues also rose to the top, similarly to the stakeholder forums, student social and emotional well-being, reopening of schools, maximizing student achievement, and parent and community communication. Some of the quotes that we pulled, we just need trustworthy and safe people that teens can rely on for help or support. Another quote, please open schools. I believe children need social interaction and mental well-being for kids as well as the adults. Student learning is at an all-time low, while mental health issues, including teen drug use and suicide, are at an all-time high. Related to facilities on the west side, the facilities on the west side schools is failing behind the rest of the district. We need special attention paid to the west side schools facilities and physical learning environment, or else we will quickly end up having a have-not split school district. Superintendent should be an instructional leader with a proven track record for getting results for diverse groups of students. Next slide. Characteristics of a new superintendent. And the survey question specifically was, we provided a list of additional characteristics, experiences, and skill areas that are important for a new superintendent. And participants were asked to select the 5 that were most important to them. In the stakeholder forum, this was an open-ended question. The forum revealed familiarity with community demographics and needs, someone that's student-centered, trustworthy, committed to social justice, equity and social justice. And the next 3 on this last bullet were all tied: honesty and integrity, commitment to student achievement, and build strong relationships. Those were all lumped together and with the same number of respondents. The online survey revealed honesty and integrity, transparency and leadership, commitment to student achievement, one who's trustworthy and student-centered. So you'll notice some of the overlapping throughout the slides here. A couple of statements that captured from the input sessions and the open-ended question, the survey, were choose someone that knows about working with our communities. Next quote, must be an educator committed to anti-racism. Please consider a leader with high ethics and moral compass, focusing on student education and well-being, strict adherence to accountability and trust, and one who's held personally liable for dishonesty and corruption. The superintendent needs a strong financial background and to know that they will need to work hard at reestablishing trust. Next slide. Some additional desired characteristics that were revealed as we were reviewing the open-ended survey question, as well as some of the additional input that we thought were noteworthy of pointing out. Some additional, included a desire to have a courageous and visionary leader, one who's innovative, collaborative, and an effective listener, and one who leads with heart and is bilingual. And bilingual is a theme that permeated throughout all of the stakeholder groups, one that's able to easily communicate with the majority of the community that's present in Sweetwater. Some specific quotes that I just pulled out: listens to the voices of students, staff, and the community, articulates and implements an inspiring, engaging, and captivating vision of exciting educational ways to successfully engage a diversity of students in the learning process, end quote. The next slide here. The question we asked here is, anything else you would like the trustees to know? And that's the same question that was asked in the forums and the online surveys. This question yielded 576 responses in the online surveys, and we categorized them into major themes by the number of times that they occurred in the participants' answers. Input from the forums resulted in these 5 themes: a student-first, student-centered leader who leads with transparency and is committed to social justice, equity, and anti-racism. And the groups also wanted to share that there's a need for social and emotional wellness programs for all stakeholders. That includes staff, the adults, and the students, and a need for the board and superintendent to be held accountable for their actions. Additionally, in the online surveys, stated that a student-first, student-centered leader was a top theme that emerged for participants into the online survey. Additionally, the following themes emerged: the need for fiscal accountability, the importance of selecting a superintendent outside of Sweetwater Union High School District who is an experienced leader with a proven track record and valid credentials, and one who is an instructional leader. Safely reopening schools is also top priority. Participants wanted the board to focus on. I want to point out that while there was an overwhelming response to select a superintendent outside of the district, there's also a stakeholder group that really felt it was important to maintain the current interim. And I have a few quotes here that I will share. That there's just so many that came through, but these quotes I'll share here were just some that were similar in terms of their frequency of showing up in the survey here. One quote: please focus on students and academic achievement. Next quote: please get someone who truly cares about the kids first, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Someone new, fresh ideas, innovating, who can lead, empower, and collaborate. Has a deep understanding of instruction and how to support the struggling students. Next quote: we are in need of a proven superintendent with a proven track record, a superintendent with history in the classroom, one who has success as a proven administrator. We are in need of proven administrator in the area of educational criteria. A person with a documented success on district budget issues. Next quote, superintendent should have credentials or educational credentials and experience in the school site as a counselor, teacher, administrator. Superintendent should be aware of racism in the district, face it, and involve all communities to work together. In our next, we need someone that will motivate teachers to do their best, which in turn benefits the students. End quote. Next slide. Some additional themes that came out, they were came out several different ways. Overcrowding of schools was identified, the need to update the curriculum, provide more access for college and career preparation, focusing on student voice, east and west side facilities being of concern in terms of disparities between the facilities, and specifically the comment was made that many of the schools are very overcrowded and maintenance has been put off at these schools. The overcrowded schools take away from the educational experience of students. There was also a statement that referred to the fact that the students on the west side deserve same facilities as those on the east side. The way that our schools are treated is unfair. The district provides schools that they like and they take from those that they don't like. Another emphasis was on extracurricular activities, not just sports, but also the arts. And recruit staff that look like the students, specifically Filipino and African American. Quotes related to that theme included, will you commit to developing a 5-year and 10-year diversity and representation for Filipino Americans? Support Filipino language classes and ensure Filipino curriculum is included in the ethnic studies proposals? And what type of outreach and recruitment plan will you have to increase the diversity and representation of Filipino Americans? Specific to African American, the quote was, the lack of African American teachers and school counselors in the district are suspicious, disappointing, and disheartening. Representation matters. Just because the African American students are not the majority in the district does not mean their voices don't deserve to be heard and that their needs can be ignored and they don't need representation. Students should be exposed to educators of all backgrounds, especially from marginalized groups other than Filipino and Mexicans, end quote. Next slide. So as Carol mentioned, our next steps I'll go through now. We switched the slides around to end with questions and answers, but the position was posted on EdJoin today. It will be published on EdCal, a publication from AXA. CALSA, which is the California Association of Latino Superintendents and Administrators. CASA, the California Association of African American Superintendents and Administrators, will also post on the Hazard Young Atia and Associates website. This is a group that's an school executive search firm. CASBO, which is the California Association for School Business Officials, LinkedIn and NeoGov. We want to cast and not arrange a wide net, but we're also going to reach out to our networks, some direct contacts with sitting superintendents who are in good standing with their boards, that have a proven track record for leading districts of similar demographics and similar concerns there. It's important that, we would also like to note that the language that we use in the posting, specifically the requirements, it's very inclusive and allows for the most talented applicants an opportunity to apply and be considered by the board. And lastly, the feedback that we gather from the stakeholder input sessions will be used to inform a profile that the candidate most likely to be successful for Sweetwater Union High School District. It will also be used in reference checking for the designing of interview questions as well. So we will, again, remain committed to supporting you throughout this process to ensure that you find the best match for your district. And the last slide. Are there any questions or comments?
Let me just for your patient, informative. I really appreciate and continue to work with you as well as the board. And with that, I'll throw it to any board member who might have any questions or comments. Do we have any public comment on this, Deanne?
No, there are no speakers to this item.
Thank you. Do we have any board members with any comments? Do I still have an echo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oops.
I wonder why.
It's somebody else listening in. They're sitting in somewhere with the 2 computers on, and that's why it's echoing. So everybody needs to mute except the person that's talking, and then you won't have it.
All right, go ahead, Paula. Trustee Hall, I should say.
Thank you. I just really wanted to thank the team for the work, Carol and Yolanda. I think I really appreciate the fact that Carol, Yolanda, you pointed out today when we met that Carol had been at all these forums. I know that was a tremendous time dedicated by her. So thank you both for everything you did. I do want to ask you to send the, I want to read, I really appreciate having the written comments from everybody because I really like going back and reminding myself as I move through different stages of this process, those things that people actually said. So if you could share those with us, I would really appreciate that. As a board member, I know that no matter what we do, some people will be happy and thrilled and some people won't. But that's the way it happens. I know that the intent I have, and I share it with my fellow board members, is we want the best for our district. We want the best for our students. They deserve it. We've been through a lot. This district has been through a tremendous amount of ups and downs, and I know that we want to pull out of this current. We saw it with the last presentation, right? We're on the road to recovery in our fiscal financials, but there's always that point where you're going to face something that's going to pull you back down. So I really appreciate the fact that you're doing this work and engaging us and our community along the way, and you're really listening, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Dr. Anastasia, go ahead.
No, I want to echo that sentiment. You've been nothing short of phenomenal in terms of the number of meetings that you've had and the outreach that you've done to the community. It's really, really wonderful. And you can tell that you're passionate about it just in the conversations that we've had one-to-one. So that makes me feel that this process is in great hands. And I just want to say thank you to you as well.
Anyone else? All right.
I also want to say thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, I guess that's it. That's a wrap. We really appreciate the work and look forward to moving forward and with the process. So
it's our pleasure to serve in this manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And that's our last item, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and with that, we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.